Testing 1.
Testing 2.
Testing 3.
Testing 4.
He's got it.
He's got it. Well done.
Yeah.
Excellent.
We always say this, right? Oh, he's got it. Oh, they've got it. It's like, I mean, it's not hard, is it? It's only a bit of counting.
I know, but
I was watching the Jonathan Ramsey one back the other day, and I think he made his own testing 4, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah, he did.
Absolutely.
What did he do? I can't remember. We've had Cool Beans 4. We've had Nature Safe 4.
Yeah.
So yeah, everyone goes a bit
Stick
free,
with testing 4.
Yeah,
Testing four.
freestyle it.
welcome to the podcast, mate.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome everybody to another episode of the Testing Podcast. And today we've got Paul Galgey.
Yep, you got
That's
that right.
Got that right. Honestly, the number of names when I'm editing these, the number of names that I've cocked up. It's like, oh, that's fine. It's like, it's not fine. It's like somebody's name. But Paul, you've come to join us, come to tell us your story, which is really awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
It's so
Well,
great.
It's great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah. Well, you reached out to me, didn't you, a couple of weeks ago? I think it was just to say thank you, wasn't it? Because you listened to one of the episodes.
It was nothing more than that.
And now look what, I dragged you in here. Is that right?
Yeah, come to the podcast.
We'll talk about it.
So I guess where today's come from is reaching out to the three of you to say thank you for just being a champion of male fertility and a voice and almost a support as well. We've been fortunate enough a month or so ago to be blessed with the birth of a baby girl.
Congratulations.
And thank you. It's a roller coaster, but it's absolutely amazing. And I just wanted to take the opportunity while I was sat in hospital to, I suppose, thank people who have directly and indirectly influenced our journey. And I said to Ian on the way in that I don't want this to sound like a back-patting exercise for the journey that we've been on. I really sympathise with people who are on really prolonged fertility journeys, and you perhaps have had multiple failed cycles of IVF, and it's taken you a long time to even begin to seek help from the wider sphere. But really, I'm hoping kind of our story is quite relatable, really. From I guess the short-term introduction to the testing team was I was seeking help from Jonathan Ramsey's clinic after probably a year or so of trying unsuccessfully to start a family. Through friends that had worked with Jonathan, we were introduced, and obviously Jonathan's influence on what we're talking about is really profound. But it was through watching, I think it was an Instagram live or a webcast that you guys were running with Jonathan talking about DNA fragmentation, which was introduced to me as a next stage from the baseline semen analysis. Mm-hmm. And from that kind of picked up other threads with yourselves, another Instagram live, which we'll come on to with Steven Moser, really picked me up at a very, very low point after a failed varicocele embolization. But really, going back to Ian's opener there, I just wanted to say thank you for championing and being a voice and a support. And I think all fertility issues, and particularly male fertility, is quite a lonely place at times. I think you have a level of guilt associated, and everyone will tell you that's not the case. And my wife Laura is super supportive with all of that, but you still have that inherent feeling. And just knowing that you're championing key people like Jonathan, like Steven. We've sought help from Lynn Chapman's fertility clinic, and it was ultimately why we were successful through IVF. So really, I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank Jonathan, Steven, yourselves for playing an influential part in our journey. And I don't underestimate that, because I think it was vitally important to seek help at the right time, and you guys played a part there.
Oh, isn't that nice?
Yeah, that's sweet,
really
man. That's cool.
nice.
But equally, it's great to know that you've reached out at the end of a successful journey, which is amazing. And congratulations to you. That's such a wonderful story. And we'll dig more into your story in a sec. But it's just great to hear that, you know, the work that we're putting in is very much exactly what we're trying to do, is what you've just explained, because it's just so important and hugely impactful that actually if men get the correct diagnosis early, that it can really transform that person's life. So to hear it from the horse's mouth today, from you today, is it's quite emotional actually. You know, it does mean a lot to us. You know, we really do care about this kind of stuff. So yeah, welcome, mate. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for reaching out, and also thank you for taking the time out today to come and speak to us about this. It's
a pleasure.
so important.
It is. It's amazing, and yeah, just welcome, to the testing team really, and I just overwhelmed really. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, you can see it in your eyes, mate.
Yeah. It's exactly what we set it up to deliver. And,
Yeah.
It's just great to hear.
I mean,
your
I think
story.
I think with a lot of things, you don't necessarily know the reach of the stuff that you do, and it's small things sometimes. I've been very open with my friends and family about our issues, and actually, it's massively helped. I have anxiety issues, and putting infertility or a complex fertility journey on top of anxiety, or the other way around, is a real petrol on the bonfire situation.
Yeah, compounds out, right?
It does, and I think some people become very introverted with that. I work completely the opposite way and seek help from friends and family, and be very open and almost normalise an issue, and the old analogy of a problem shared. But it comes back to the start point that I think you arm yourself with knowledge as you go through a journey, and I think it's really important to be proactive in situations, and I think that's something I wanted to emphasize. A lot of people who suffer with fertility issues and infertility, it might take them a long time and a confidence thing to go out and speak to the right people and be proactive. But we took the kind of view after a year or so with my wife Laura doing her respective tests and me starting that and it flagging an issue. To be proactive, to seek knowledge, to get a support network, and without sounding like I'm patting myself on the back, it really helped. And I think it's quite a relatable thing that don't sit on your hands, don't wait for something to happen, because there's people who can help, and there's insanely intelligent people like Sir Jonathan and Steven Moser who's helped me.
The legends that they are.
They are the legends. We love them to bits, don't we?
Yeah.
But you use that network, use the stuff that you guys talk about on a regular basis to further yourselves. Really.
But you have to be proactive about it, don't you? And this is what you're saying is like, you've got your results. We'll maybe go over that in a minute, but you got your results. You're like, okay, I need to do something here. I need to find some information. And I think, that's what we're trying to do, is fill that gap, because there are so many men that end up in that situation. Like, what do I do?
Totally.
And they've spoken to their GP, and it's not the GP's fault that they don't necessarily know where or how to direct that guy. And they're like, okay, well, what do I do now? And they don't know what to do, or they stick their head in the sand and just hope that it will go away, or there'll be a solution around the corner that's easy for them to deal with.
Absolutely. I mean, it frustrates me, actually. I think it's a miseducation point, really, in this country. I don't know if it extends beyond, but from an early age, the concept of fertility and starting a family is spoken about as such an easy thing to do.
If you put the fear in you as well.
Put the fear in you. If you breathe in the direction of a girl, she'll get pregnant. And the truth couldn't be further away. And I think, one thing I wanted to emphasize is, I'm a firm believer that everyone should have the right and the knowledge to know where their fertility sits. And I'd accept the point that it's perhaps not everyone would want to know where they sit. If you're starting a relationship in your late 20s, you might not want to put that pressure on straight away. But in our instance, I've been together with Laura since third year of university, so 15, 16 years. We've been married for 6. And had I known where we sat in terms of fertility, or where I sat, I'd have we'd have almost certainly done things differently over recent years. And you end up having this pressure, this almost like race to the finish line. We want to start a family. Have we left it too late? Time's ticking. And the amplified pressure. I touched on kind of the mental health side of it. And in kind of reaching out to friends and, learning from other friends who've been very open about their own issues, you start to help others. And and it's not necessarily an infertility issue. It might be early miscarriage, or it might be the monthly pressure of which we've all experienced. Probably every man has, where you build up every month and you pat your partner on the back and say, I think we've nailed it this month. And then there's that awkward 2-week wait to see what happens. And then it all comes crashing down again. It's not like anything else you do in life where there's building blocks and you've made progress. It's literally the croupier at the casino wiping all the chips away and you start again. And that's really hard. And I think speaking with friends and so on, those sorts of pressures where you can be in your own box and quite isolated, they related to that. And I think, talking about these things is a massive help.
Yeah. And hindsight's a great thing, right? And it sort of like predicts really what we should probably have done in the past. But you know, it is with being proactive, getting that education, that awareness, and it's everything that we try and do is so important. And you know, to have somebody like you on today is just absolutely fantastic, really. So anybody listening out there, you've got to be proactive. You've got to go and seek some help when you need it. And just coming through and just talking to somebody, talking to friends, family, and maybe reaching out a bit further is so important. So yeah,
I think it opens doors. It might take the weight off your shoulders, but in my instance, it opened doors. Yeah. I spoke to a friend who they've now got 2 kids, one of which was born through IVF, and the first introduction for them was through Jonathan Ramsey, and Jonathan then put ourselves on a path where I'd kind of taken a step back and talking about how I may have played things differently. My problem, or part of my problem, was varicocele, where in my early teens, a varicocele developed, which turns out through consultation with Jonathan was actually pretty significant. It was first considered to be a hydrocele. So Jonathan's first point was, it was a big problem. Yeah. I eventually got treated in my early 20s, so 2012. I'm 36 now.
Was that, sorry, did you see Jonathan back then?
I didn't. No.
So how was that varicocele picked up in your 20s?
Through GP consultation, then referral, and then.
Is that because you'd felt a lump? Were you aware?
Oh, it was. Classic teenager, I suppose. You know, one testicle's bigger than the other. You just think, oh well, they come in all shapes and sizes. There's other things to think about. So you kind of put it to the back of your mind, knowing there is an issue there. Well, it's not affecting me on a day-to-day yet, but I specifically remember the point. I had a job after finishing uni where I stood on my feet for a long time, and day after day I was like, this ache is getting worse and worse. Horrendous. And you'd go to the toilet, look down, and I remember 2 or 3 occasions thinking, that is not normal. There's something wrong there. Yeah. And the consultant that I saw at the time, Paul Crow in Birmingham, he was great, treated it successfully, and it kind of went away. And it was only when, but I'd say it went away. It improved. But the issue that I had, I guess, in the back of my mind through my 20s, I thought, well, we're not quite at the stage of starting a family yet. I hope everything's okay, because I had that varicocele. It went untreated for 8, 9, 10 years from first kind of misdiagnosis, if you want to call it that. And I knew something was there, and it played in my mind. And when we started trying to conceive, I obviously you have a hope that it will work, but I had this thing in the back of my mind that something's not quite right here. Right. Almost to the point that if we did conceive, I'd have been not surprised maybe, but relieved. And it was when I went back to see Jonathan, best part of 2 years ago, actually, when we tried for a year and decided to go and be tested and be proactive about this, that he sort of reintroduced the concept of maybe it's a recurrent varicocele, maybe it's bilateral, which it was then proven that it was. And I initially went down a different route with another consultant that wasn't Steven Moser, and it was a pretty traumatic experience, actually. I had the embolization procedure that wasn't successful. I felt extremely lonely and almost kind of in a bit of a pit of despair, actually. And that's when you guys hosted a podcast with Steven Moser, probably October 23, sometime around then.
Oh, that was the live. There's the live during fertility.
That's right.
Sorry, excuse me. And a lot of the stuff was focused on, it was all things varicocele, but it was about how different methods of treatment might be successful, how Steven finds solutions where others don't, and basically don't despair. And that really prompted me to pick myself up off the floor.
That's interesting,
go and speak to Steven. And then he successfully treated me for a bilateral varicocele literally within a couple of months of that episode.
Wow, okay, that's huge, isn't it? Yeah, that's mad. It's interesting that you've had you had a bad experience, but also didn't fix the issue. Like, can you tell me a bit more about that experience and why that was like?
I mean, I have to be careful what I say, because I felt that the whole procedure could have been handled better, and I kind of don't mind saying that. kind of on this. I think because my varicocele was quite long-standing and initially was very big, and obviously there was a level of success with the first treatment, sort of the tree diagram of the veins, it was quite complex to track through. So where Steven's techniques differed from the unsuccessful route was through sclerosis. So it was a combination of coils and sclerosing, if that's the right word. And kind of that, I suppose, increased level of technical ability, should we say, but also the assurance from Jonathan that no, I know you've gone down a different route, but if you reverse and go with Steven, who's got a track record that's excellent and really high success rate, you might see a difference. And I suppose, you know, with a lot of fertility stuff, it's sometimes quite difficult to attribute an outcome to an effect and really plot it carefully. But with Jonathan's kind of supervision, I did a DNA frag initially pre-op and 5 months maybe post-op, and there was an improvement in the DNA frag. It jumped by about 10% in that 4 or 5 month period.
Wow.
That's significant. That is very significant.
In a short period when sort of the recommendation is, if you can, leave it 6 months. Yeah. And it may well have improved since. So I don't know that, because thankfully we were successful last June, July at a first stage of IVF through ICSI. And so I've not needed to test again, but I think it's a really good advocation of that kind of critical path of stepping beyond the first stage of a kind of anodyne baseline semen analysis and really trying to kind of amplify your treatment path. And you do that by speaking to the right people and empowering yourself with knowledge.
I find it really interesting because you obviously got to like a really interesting fork in the road that I would say you're quite rare to have got to that point where that you've had a varicocele treatment when you was much younger for obviously discomfort, pain. Obviously, you know, you've got an abnormality there. You've then had the second treatment that all hopes are that it's going to improve fertility, and then you're seeing Jonathan to discuss a third treatment for varicocele. From like my own feelings at that point would be that like the lack of confidence you may have had at that point, that will this even work? You know, is it even worth doing this for the third time? You know, that's quite a long way down the road of kind of repair. But equally, it shows, you know, the level of skills that and success rates that Steven Moser have got. You know, I was treated by him, so I know exactly the way the methodology of his incredible work. He's an absolute OCD guy, isn't he? Of like how he operates, which is awesome. But no, I just find that really interesting because like, you could have made a decision at that point to go, look, I appreciate your advice. However, this hasn't worked for me. Why would I now continue that? And I think that's really impactful. And it's interesting that obviously the podcast that you the Instagram Live that we hosted with Steven helped obviously prompt some of that decision.
Massively. But I'd almost, and that's why I wanted to reach out the other week, that I do see that as a critical turning point, because that was literally the trough of my feeling and super high anxiety about, are we ever going to get out of this and how, and it was all very raw at that stage. I literally think it was days after the failed attempt, so you're still processing it. And so it's almost like some divine intervention that you happen to have Steven Moser talking about varicocele. And you know, I always felt that following Jonathan's methods, you don't really want to deviate from it. And just when we went to see him again after that failed attempt with the other consultant, he really felt strongly that you could get a better solution by working with somebody else, i.e. Steven. And so I didn't feel that it was a superfluous attempt. I felt that everything that Jonathan had explained up to that point made absolute sense. And I sometimes think with people, it's the delivery of words, and Jonathan has this way of communicating whereby he doesn't use words for the sake of it. He's very precise, and what the words that he does say, you take a lot from. And it was a very calm advice that was just like, I think you might well find that you'll have an alternative outcome if you go with Steven.
But it's also going back to basics, going through a full history with you, even though you've already had a procedure.
Absolutely.
And doing some of those advanced tests, which was sort of guiding him to say, actually, there is still something here that could be treatable, go and get some further advice. Go and see somebody like Steven Moser, who can then, analyze exactly what's gone on, understand exactly where things are right or not right in the previous procedure, and
Absolutely.
then go and correct that, and to have that positive result afterwards. A lot of people don't actually get that positive result afterwards, doing a DNA fragmentation test afterwards to see whether there is an improvement. So the very fact that you started again almost from scratch with the diagnostics and then can see the post result is fantastic. And you're here with a positive result, and I think that's sort of a testament really for other patients out there. Even if they've had a previous procedure done, go and get it checked, just to make sure that you've got a confirmatory positive outcome from that procedure, and then take some advice moving forwards. So that's great.
I think it's proactivity. I know we've said it, but I couldn't emphasize that enough. And there's lots of quite extreme stories with fertility. And I think possibly ours sits somewhere in the middle. But the thing that I wanted to kind of really say worked for us was that being proactive about it, and finding access to answers quickly and speaking to the right people. It's absolutely key.
Can we just go back? You mentioned obviously when you saw that live with Steven, you were kind of at your lowest point. What had been the journey to that point? Obviously, so you'd had the surgery. Was that year as well?
The failed surgery.
The failed surgery.
Yeah, that was. So in terms of dates, June. I remember it specifically because we were seeing Arctic monkeys the night before I opened my sperm results. So it was June 23. So we'd been trying to conceive for a year or so, which, and reason I say ours isn't as extreme as others is because it may have taken people 3, 4, 5 years to get to the point where I'm going to go and get a sperm test. But we're going to do it now because we want to know what we're dealing with. And then very quickly we were in to see Jonathan that summer, July 23.
So after the Arctic monkeys, you opened your results. Was that just a semen analysis?
It was. Yeah.
And what was the results like, or what were your results?
So
like?
my issue is the shape of my sperm. So the count was good. The motility is fine. It was the morphology.
That sounds familiar, doesn't it, Toby?
That sounds sounds like mine. Yeah.
Amazingly familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah. Okay, so you got that result.
Yes.
After the Arctic, was that a shock for you?
Huge shock. Yeah.
Right.
I know I said earlier about the fact that I knew I'd had varicoceles, the sense that there was something still there, but it still hits you hard. You open that one-page sheet of maths, basically.
Yeah,
and you
it's
start to
always
interpret
easy
it.
to read.
But there's a red number screaming at you.
Yeah.
It says 2% of normal shapes. And I know the baseline is 4. And again, it comes back to knowledge. Somebody reads that and thinks, God, I've only got 4% normal
we've talked
morphology.
about
But that's an acceptable baseline.
Yeah, that is normal.
But that's such a scary number when you look at the millions that are
It
there.
is. It's all about the numbers and the shape and normal forms and so forth.
And Jonathan was really assuring on that. It's 2% of millions. So that starts to put it into context. But you're left with that, and that was a really difficult thing to do. Which when I speak to friends, and they said, well, Jonathan Ramsey was a huge help to us. So I took those first results to Jonathan's clinic in Beaconsfield, and then we did a series of other tests. So first was to establish whether there's varicocele. There was on both sides. Oxidative stress was okay. And then the recommendation was to do a deeper dive DNA frag test, which again came back below par, higher than average fragmentation, an okayish amount of good sperm, but enough to say an intervention, a physical intervention, i.e.
you need to do something.
You need to do something.
So how quickly did you see Jonathan after getting that first semen analysis result, if that was in June?
Within about a month. With a month to 6 weeks.
I mean, that's quite incredible, to be honest, because like you said, your journey in some ways is quite, not, I was going to say unremarkable, but it's not as bad or as long as some other couples. Like we speak to guys and couples that have been going for 5-6 years and they've had 3 rounds of failed IVF. You've been trying for a year, you've done semen analysis, you've got an abnormality, and you've gone to then go and see the right professional very, very quickly. that's not happening anywhere near enough as it should.
It's funny. I spoke about my kind of general anxiety disorder earlier, and that works two ways. One, it makes problems very binary, which is problematic because you jump to the worst case and you catastrophize. But in equal measure, an anxiety disorder makes me proactive. If I've got an issue, I'm going to try and resolve it straight away. And I suppose by default it helped me because we were able to get on that path quickly, and you start speaking to the right people who recommend intervention.
And many people go the other way, don't they? They go and hide and go into a shell, and I know I did, as a personality type. I just went, oh, crikey, went introverted and went, oh, what do I do? What do I do? And at that time, there wasn't the same level of support as there is now. The awareness is far greater now than what it ever has been. But I don't think for me, I knew where to go, and certainly didn't have friends which were experiencing the same type of issue. And the only real route is really to try and be proactive, as you said. And I wasn't at that time until very much later on. So you've got guys just got to be proactive out there. So
but you were the same though, weren't you? You were petrified about getting your DNA frag done.
Yeah, massively. Yeah, I vividly remember how petrified I was. And but what I find interesting is that from your semen analysis and having that 2% morphology, when I got to that fork in the road and I was told about my 2% morphology, the conversation was clear as day. It was, don't worry about that, we'll just do ICSI. And then the whole purpose of the next 12, 18 months was trying to find a problem with my partner, Katie. She must be the issue, she must be. And that was always the language, and no one ever really said anything to me about the morphology other than, it's a bit lower than normal, don't worry, we'll just do ICSI. Unlike yours, where you're seeing this kind of red, there's a problem, I need to kind of fix it. And again, it kind of reverts back to the kind of start of this conversation about awareness, having that slightly lower morphology in the conversations that I had with the professionals back then was, don't worry, we'll just do ICSI. I went on to have 2 rounds of IVF that was unsuccessful, and it was brutal, and I never want to repeat that history again. It was a horrible experience. But thankfully for you got in a situation where, okay, now I've got something that I can look to see if I can fix, and you've had the DNA frag done early. And coming to your point about how scared I was about the DNA frag, when I got to DNA frag testing, we was nearly 5 years deep of treatment at that point and trying. And I remember feeling extremely scared of the result of it because I think we'd gone on for so long, and that I kind of knew deep down that this is probably going to be bad news. And it came back just like you. It's like your story and your journey is really similar in the respect that fast forward several years, that actually was a lot more sort of quicker, I don't know if that's the right word, but more efficient help thanks to your personality trait in many ways. And it's exactly why we've got to advocate this.
I think you two could just swap seats, couldn't you?
literally have lived the same story.
In the sense that you both had the same issue, but that decision or that action for you, was that, okay, well, actually, I'm going to go and see Jonathan and dig deeper and find out what's going on. Whereas your action was, okay, well, we're going to go towards an IVF clinic because we're told that IVF's a solution. And look how different that pathway is.
Incredibly different.
But it was the same issue.
Yeah, so, and I was going to say, and I always had varicocele. I was always kind of aware of dull aches. I'd play football, go running, and be like, oh, it's kind of achy. I did the typical thing of any bloke would do of, like, oh, I'll be fine. Don't worry about that. There's a little lump there. I don't want to go and see anyone, too embarrassed to talk about it. But I think that perhaps your kind of earlier experiences of yours being a bit more severe at the time, maybe, perhaps has helped you. I don't want to talk out of turn, but perhaps made you more kind of confident to actually go and seek support because of the history. Whereas I'd avoided doctors throughout my whole life, and that's kind of just my attitude towards it. But it's just it's just fascinating to just hear your story, because it's like walking in the same shoes, but there's a fork in the road where I turn left and you turn right. I think how different the outcome was.
It does touch on something. I mean, I've found it relatively easy to be open about everything, and it's been a source of assurance. I think the issue is that doesn't work for everyone.
No,
and in my spectrum of friends, you get varying degrees of buy-in to talk about these things. Some people are absolutely engaged and it's completely open. Others are, supportive but guarded. And it's difficult because if you're more of that introverted spectrum and you are experiencing these sort of things, it's a big step of faith to kind of to go and pull your pants down and get your testicles out in front of a doctor and potentially face a reality that you knew was there but you didn't really want to face up to.
Yeah, that's exactly how I was. exactly that. Because I remember having that conversation with Ian. Is that I was so scared of this might be the reality. That what if this is it and it can't be
and
changed.
it crystallizes the issues that you've had.
Yeah.
But it doesn't get away from the fact that kind of the proactivity and building your knowledge. And I think in your case, kind of the maybe missing piece of the jigsaw is getting that early into somebody explicitly saying you've got a varicocele. It may not be prudent to go and do a cycle or 2 cycles of IVF. Deal with something up front and then go into a traumatic IVF cycle. And I keep saying to Laura, my wife, that she was absolutely amazing through all of this. She's dealing with me, who's kind of on the floor and picking me up, and she's the one pushing through the stages that will do this and being very systematic and arming herself with knowledge. Like, it's absolutely brilliant what she's done in terms of upskilling her knowledge. And we step into IVF with confidence that we can't physically do it anymore other than leave it to Lynn Chapman and Area Fertility to work with what they got now.
Yeah.
And we felt that we were putting our absolute best foot forward because we'd done everything in our power, including all the kind of the lifestyle choices like no alcohol, better diet. I stopped doing cycling. I haven't been on a bike since, actually. But I think that's more about COVID, that we went cycling every weekend and I've just got PTSD. But we felt like we were putting our best foot forward. And I think if I can summarize everything that we're talking about in whatever anyone's fertility story is, it's putting your best foot forward, giving yourself the best hand that you can, and then giving the powers that be the tools to go to work.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important, isn't it? And I think one of the reassuring things, sort of hearing your story is that, guys have got to go and get their nuts checked. They really have.
Absolutely.
They've got to go and drop their pants and go and get a good old, feel in the scrummage in the sack and make sure that everything's, anatomically correct. It's just, it is your equipment to fuel, a fertility outcome. And if you don't go and get that checked at a basic check, then we're missing a huge amount. And we spoke about uncomfortableness from a GP point of view in doing that scrummage in the scrotum. But
Scrummage, that's a campaign.
It is
Scrummage of the
scrummage of the scrotum
With the rugby team behind us.
Sponsors at Twickenham.
Well, maybe we do that. But it's so important to have that basic check first, because that is the starting point of maybe having some more tests, ultrasound, identify what's going on, whether it's a hydrocele, whether it's varicocele. Those are leading causes of male infertility, and if we don't recognise those early enough, then we're not going to have the success rates that people desire. So
and I think that's a relatively simple first step. If you've had problems or you think there might be something, just go and get checked, because I suppose some of the topics that we're discussing are relatively technical, they're quite deep, but you've got to start somewhere. Your first step is that very simple thing. And I think it might breathe you a sigh of relief that everything is okay, carry on as you are.
Exactly.
But equally, it might just be the first step of many that help you get to where you want to be.
Yeah.
And it's quite simple to do.
It is. It's really simple to do. And a lot of men do get missed in that first initial step, certainly in primary care. They may have a semen analysis and the GP's trying to, actively do as much as they have the knowledge and the experience that they have. But missing out that scrummage in the scrotum is it is. I'm going to keep saying it. It's a really important thing to do. Is really, really important to get over the line, as well as all the additional other tests and background medical checks and lifestyle history and nutrition and so forth. But that's the starting point for me.
For sure.
Yeah.
So just to continue your journey then. So you've had the third now embolization that's obviously turned out to be successful. You've had then a DNA frag retest and that's improved.
Yes. So 4 or 5 months post successful embolization, there was an improvement in DNA frag, and I'd like to think that had a positive influence in us then going into IVF and being lucky enough to conceive first time.
Yeah. That's great.
That's incredible, isn't it?
So it's awesome. It really is awesome.
It's the appliance of science, though, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah, it really is.
Another fun.
And actually, we spoke many a times on this podcast, and me personally, socially, etc. Is that couples going to IVF often was like, right, okay, here's some potential issues. Don't worry, go straight to IVF and ICSI. That will be the cure. ever since my diagnosis and our successful outcome, I've always advocated that if you get to IVF, try and give them the best ingredients possible.
Absolutely, yeah.
So things like the lifestyle and diet stuff, of course, is going to help that. But what you've done, you've really been the perfect patient to an IVF clinic, i.e. that you've done all of the workup personally, both you and your partner, so that when you've gone to that first round, you're both at your optimum prior to that treatment cycle. So many people go into that first round of IVF on the hope and the win that it's going to work first time, and quite often IVF doesn't work first time as the rates of success goes. But in your case, what you've done is you've basically accelerated all of that workup so that when you've got there, you are now giving the best ingredients, the best sperm, the best egg you can give to the IVF clinic to give them the best opportunity. And and that's huge testament to any IVF clinic out there, that if they want better success rates, this workup is so important.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more.
And that's a huge part of what we're trying to sort of advocate in our campaign, is that Test Him is all about obviously testing the man. If we can intervene early enough that there's a natural conception, of course that is a great outcome also. But if it gives people like yourself that chance that the first round is successful and that you worked up to that point, I mean, that's a dream for any clinic to go, congratulations, this has worked first time. And Lynn's lovely. I love the team that she's got there, and it's just so nice to hear that you've been what I call a textbook. I mean, ideally the textbook case is that we don't have fertility issues. That would be lovely if we didn't have those. But in terms of like that kind of what I would see as a textbook journey to have a successful outcome, you're living proof of that and our ethos, and that's just such a beautiful story to hear, and I'm so grateful for you sharing that. It really means
and it's
a lot.
not giving up. I think that's what I'm really chuffed about for you is that you didn't give up on you, and getting that full diagnostic sort of test and the advice from Jonathan and various other people to give you the best opportunity for a very good successful outcome when you reapproach that IVF program. So don't give up.
Thank you. I mean, it's just nice to be able to talk so openly about this sort of stuff. But I totally agree with you, Toby. I think too many people probably see IVF as the solution in a very two-dimensional manner, and it might ultimately well be that. But as you say, first stages of IVF, if you haven't necessarily done all these stages initially, are quite exploratory, and the scientists then calibrate all the data from that failed IVF. Why has it failed? What can they do in the meantime to improve your chances? Go away and have a varicocele treated, come back in 6 months. But there's a psychological impact to a failed IVF cycle.
There is massive.
And especially for both, but the woman is going through a series of injections. It can be intrusive. I mean, obviously Lynn and clinic made it absolutely wonderful, and I couldn't recommend them more. But there's a reality to IVF, and there's a financial reality to it as well. So I think if you're going down that route, then it's prudent to do these things up front. And we said it earlier, but give yourself the strongest possible cards in your hand and put your best foot forward.
Yeah.
And there's so many parallels, isn't there, Toby, to motor racing? We were talking about it earlier on, but there's so many parallels about doing early testing, getting on the track before the season starts, and whether it's a season starting for IVF, it does, doesn't it?
Perfectly. Yeah. Well, knowledge is power.
It is.
Yeah. And I have got a question though. How's your nuts now? the third round of embolization.
I as far as I know, it's fine. There's no pain there. It's relatively normal. I don't want to tempt fate because Jonathan's emphasized the fact that you might have it come back in the future, which was my case because it started so severely. But I think the post effect from Steven was, this has been successful. Now give it a few months, and he told us to go away on holiday, forget about it all, and revisit it several months later, which we did. I've got to tell a funny story because Steven's care and attention was unbelievable, and I was sat at home on the evening after having the procedure, and he called me up out unknown number. Calls me up at 9 o'clock, and I'm watching Everton try and fail to score for the 10th week in succession. And I'm speaking to Steven saying, feeling okay. And then Everton score. And I was like, is there nothing beyond his capabilities? He's intervened in Everton's misfortune. I was like, but
he is a legend.
Yeah.
But no, going back to the question, it seems okay. I don't rule out the fact that there could be reoccurrence, because that does happen. And that's a reality to face up with as well. But it's treatable. Yeah. And you can be successfully treated for varicocele, and maybe that you sail off into the sunset, that's all great. But if it does come back, there's still ways and means of dealing with it there and then again. So it's not
revising.
despairing.
Yeah,
But I presume also you've got some embryos in the freezer from the treatment?
Yes, yeah.
How many have you got left in the freezer?
We've got one left. So, but we again, we're talking about kind of textbook. Laura, my wife's, all her conditions were relatively good. So we felt like we were okay in that regard. It was more my issue. And then the process of egg collection was fairly kind of textbook for our age and Laura's AMH, and really how the embryos then travelled through in terms of the ones that reached the final stage. So we've our thoughts now are to really kind of, I guess, bask in the glory of having a little one at home, and not put too much pressure on ourselves in terms of next steps. You know, we'll see where it leads, but I think we always said throughout this that if we get to where we want to be, which is to be a mother and a father, we'd be just insanely thankful. And I reminded Laura of it yesterday, that I said at the lowest point, I will make a point of thanking people who've helped us if we're successful, and to kind of champion that cause. And you know, there's imposter syndrome a little bit, kind of talking to you guys who do it all the time, but you know, it's just such an important thing. And I said it earlier, I find it incredibly frustrating that there is just a lack of knowledge. I think most men, even the most kind of upskilled men, still have a very two-dimensional knowledge of fertility, and it's probably high percentage will only know that there's a certain time of the month that you can conceive, which is mad. Like how do you not taught that in school? How are you not armed with that knowledge to go and build relationships with? And part of your campaign is about DNA frag and the availability of it, and how it creates a three-dimensional map when a sperm test is pretty boilerplate, to be honest, and promoting answers rather than just a set of numbers. And that's so important, how it's not more represented in the wider sphere of medicine and the NHS, when, you know, we've got an endemic problem world over with falling birth rates. How are we not being upfront about it and putting the knowledge out there and upskilling men to go and be tested?
Go and test it, and go and ask for it if it hasn't been, you know, sort of suggested in the first instance. You know, especially like you know something may not be quite right down below, then a thorough investigation is really what you need, not just relying on a standard semen analysis. It will give you good starting point information, and it is the gold standard, you know, and I'd always advocate for it to be done. But having additional information which can then lead decision making, and certainly a decision diagnostic pathway and a treatment option pathway is going to be really, really useful. So
I think the picture just extends. The more layers you add to it, the more you're giving a consultant or a surgeon.
It's more options. It's more options for the diagnostic, you know, diagnosing sort of physician, and saying, actually, we've spotted something here. Let's go and sort that out before we do the next part of the intervention, which could be IVF or ICSI as a procedure.
But I think it's important to say, actually, it's got to be the right clinician as well, though. You know, obviously you saw Jonathan, there's many other great urologists out there, because some patients or some couples might be listening to this and they've had these conversations within an IVF unit. And as you were saying earlier, and you were case in point when you said, but we'll just do ICSI. And I had that exact conversation this week with a guy in a consultation as well. It's like, well, my DNA frag was bad, we were told to just do ICSI. I think it is important that men understand they need to take themselves out of that scenario, that consultation process, and see a male fertility expert who knows the science and the data specifically around these conditions and can then give you all of your options.
I totally agree. You get a more granular approach, and you know, I know Jonathan Ramsey can't see everyone, but the value of seeing a urologist breaks it down away from a clinical approach. That, well, what's the picture that's leading to these results, and that's prior to then going into a clinical setting and working out what your options are, where you introduce ICSI or whatever it might be. So I totally advocate that breaking down of the process into a very stage-by-stage method. But until this is all common knowledge, you know, it's up to the likes of yourselves to keep banging the drum. And I think it's really important, like, to anyone listening or whoever hears this, to know how far a message might spill. And you know, you only need, like Laura was telling me the other day, or reminding me about an incident in work 12 months ago where I think it was Mental Health Awareness Day, and she made the point of referencing you guys as to how you kind of assisted our journey in a sense. And you know, if one person in that 30 room environment got something from that, then it's effort well spent, isn't it?
It is.
Absolutely.
It is, absolutely.
Yeah,
And I think it's well worth noting that there are some very, very good urologists. It's not just Jonathan.
That's just my experience.
And we work with quite a number of them, don't we?
Sure,
And, you know, so if Jonathan is not available, go on our website. We've got a long list of other, you know, very good urologists with a specialist interest in male fertility. And do trust them. Do trust them because they're very well trained with lots of different experience and you know, experience and very good positive outcomes. So, yeah.
I think you're almost like the new poster boy for testing, Paul. I mean, honestly, you've just been outstanding. And I think, you know, I almost want to say to you, well, what's your take-home message? I think your take-home message is loud and clear, isn't it? Is that guys have got to self-advocate, get out there and test and find the right resources. But
I think just proactivity, really, and really seeing knowledge as power, not just to you and being in control of your own destiny to some degree, but to the people that you're going to speak to. And, you know, I've spoken about the people that have helped us, and have, you know, there's alternatives to everyone that we've spoken about, and a fantastic array of teams everywhere. But just finding access to knowledge and finding access to help and taking the pressure off yourselves, you know, it's vitally important. The burden of starting a family is like nothing else. And, you know, I think it's one of the hardest, if not the hardest things that we've gone through. And that's a very relatable thing across the board. Even if you've got a successful family, there's very regularly complications, whether it's some of the issues we've spoken about. It might be early miscarriage, it might be trying and failing for a long time, or, as I said earlier, just the simple process of going into this systematic trying to have a baby, and the stress that can cause in a relationship, the mental anguish that can give in terms of making it happen at that moment, and picking yourself off the floor every 28 days or whatever it is. There's so many layers to it that just, I think, seeking help in the right places, and just upskilling your knowledge so you feel like you're in control. And as you said earlier, Toby, feeling like you're doing everything you can to make the situation better. And you know, there's, as I said, there's more extreme stories. Extreme is probably the wrong word. More prolonged stories than ours, but hopefully there's an element of relatability.
I think yours is only shorter because you did the right thing at the right time.
Because possibly.
Yeah, Toby's case in point. Had you taken the other path, then you might be several years down the line. You know, but I think you coming in today, sharing your story. Like you say, you know, your wife mentioned us to somebody, you know, at a work event.
My mum mentions it to her friends. Now my mum's an expert on male fertility.
It's great. It's great for mums to be, you know, experts in male fertility. I love it. My mum is. She's like, oh, not that again.
She can't help me now.
No. She tells everybody else. She's so proud of. I
think it imparts a bit of parents or family members are doing their bit to help by simply understanding a situation. So if I go home and offload that, we've had this result, it's not just a pat on the shoulder, it'll be okay. It's okay, well, what's the next step? And you have a constructive conversation, and it might open your eyes to something you hadn't thought about. So from a close family perspective, you know, you guys have played a part there as well. So, you know,
I think what you've done is amazing, mate, and coming in to share it so openly at such short notice as well. You know, only known you for a week and a half, but genuinely, thank you so much. And I know, you know, you got that something from that Steven Moser Insta Live. There'll be another guy or several guys that are going to listen to this that are going to have that same experience of listening to you.
Well, I hope so. I mean,
I think they will.
It's really good to be able to speak so openly with you guys, and you know, thanks very much for inviting me. But I mean, if that was the case and I had a tiny effect on one person, then I would go to sleep happy, frankly.
You will.
I think you can. If you can get any sleep.
It's broken at the moment, but I wouldn't change it. Well.
Absolutely. Oh, well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations again.
Thank you so much for being so brave. You're helping us remove the stigma of fertility, which is really important also. And just wish you guys a very happy family, long life together. And
thank you.
A wonderful story. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
All right, Paul. Cheers. Take care.
Thanks.
Cheers.